Okay, everybody, it's been a while, and I had to think about this because I was going to go through a very long scientific explanation for everybody's making errors on how they're trying to explain operant conditioning so that uh, normal people can understand it. And probably the problem is the 23 genders delusional postmodernist acolytes view of things. They don't understand, they confuse semantically, they're wrong. And that's permeated itself with the dog training people. So, since I am an academic linguist, if you didn't know that, there's some things. If you're just coming to this out of nowhere on the dog training thing, I have a long ago history of dog training, probably long before anybody you're watching on on YouTube currently, and I have a background in behavioral modification, basically Skinner, Thorndike, Watson, and I'll talk about that in somewhat more. Uh, all of that, but I'm more known for uh, doing such things as zero distance warfare. I'm a subject matter expert, was a professional fighter, and my linguistics and language videos. And this is getting back in and trying to clear up things for people uh, away from the pet dog people. Pet dog people, to make an analogy, are sort of like the kids martial arts instructors. That's about the level they're on. Anyway, so what are the problems here when people try to? This is very important because this is the science behind learning, especially for animals. Uh, you don't have any sort of massive cognitive depth psychology, it's called, going on with animals. It's more clear, it's more direct, and of course that was called operant conditioning. So what where are the errors with operant conditioning? Well, they lie in the terms that Skinner chose, and then how people try to overlay their views of things onto those terms. So his original terms were okay, here they go: a positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Now, okay, so what do we got going on right now? To clear all that up would take quite a bit of time, and you would still be confused because why? Because, like I said, the 23 gender confusion delusionals have taken things like positive, and that morally means good, and negative means bad. And that's not what it means at all in this case. And of course, uh, reinforcement, they don't really know what that means, but punishment, punishing has to be bad. So ideologically, what you have going on is, and it's going on with the dog people too, with the trainers, they're approaching things ideologically instead of how it actually works. Does it work or does it not work? It's a goal oriented task completion. That is not evident in most people in the dog training world anymore. So, as a linguist, I had to decide how to present this so that you would understand and not get confused by that, because you're going to overlay all of that emotional baggage that you've been contaminated with from other people because you're not used to using the scientific terminology correctly. All right. So, without going through a massive amount of history on all this, here's the easy way to clear it up. When you reinforce something, that means it increases the frequency of the behavior of something doing. If you punish something, it means you decrease the frequency of something occurring, meaning the behavior. So the behavior, you're either going to increase it or you're trying to decrease it. Wow, giant structural clarity that is missing in most people who are in the dog training world. They don't get to this. You're either going to try to increase a behavior or decrease it. They get caught up in something else and they're not this clear. So I'm bringing part of my self-defense, self-protection stuff that I pioneered into this, and being very clear and sequential and structured and scientific and empirical about this. So you're either going to increase the behavior or decrease the behavior. Now, positive does not mean good, and negative does not mean bad. Positive means adding something. So in the case of of a positive reinforcement means adding something to increase the frequency. Negative means subtracting or taking away, as they might have told you when you were in, I don't know, second, third grade. So you're either adding something or taking something away. You're adding or subtracting, to use the antonyms. So you're going to, if you want to increase a behavior, there are two ways to do that. You can do that by adding something to increase the frequency of the behavior, or you can take away something to increase the frequency of the behavior. Now, punishment means decreasing the behavior. So you're either going to add something to decrease the behavior, or you're going to take away something to decrease the behavior. Now, a lot of people think anything negative is bad. So that's not what it means here. Okay, it's not what it means. So if you want to, for example, this is used by humans, quite a few parents, and this is also, I can explain the thing is called the Premack principle, which is also known as the relativity principle. And that is, to get something you want, you'll have to do something that you don't like to do as much. And for example, what is that? Okay, you got to clean up your room before you can, whatever, nowadays, watch videos, DVDs, whatever, now it's not even DVDs, it's streaming, right? Before you can go out and play. Kids don't play anymore, but I'm just using that. Before you want to do it, you have to, Pink Floyd, how can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat? That's a Premack. Premack right there. Remember Pink Floyd? I just explained it so easily for everybody, okay? That's a Premack. If you want to have the pudding, you got to first do something, and that is, for many cases, for a dog, like you tell the dog to sit before you open the door and let the dog outside. The dog wants to go outside, but first you have the dog sit. So he's going to sit more readily to get out because he has motivation, and that's what everything's about, really, when you get down to dog training. It's about motivation. So if your parents told you, now I'm back, this would be called negative punishment, okay? What does that mean? It means taking away something to decrease the behavior of something. All right, so if you say, let's use swearing, for example, which nobody cares about anymore in the United States, for example. They let their kids do whatever. But anyway, in the older days, parents would punish their kids for swearing. So in this case, what is negative punishment, or what is taking away something to decrease the frequency of the behavior? Okay, so you tell the kid that he doesn't get an allowance this week, or he is not able to go out and hang out with his friends, or he's not able to use the internet. You're taking away something that he wants to decrease his frequency of swearing. All right. So I can go on explaining all these little things, but I'm giving you a more clear explanation of the semantics involved with these terms, because that is what's been missing. People are putting it so you can understand it. You either want to increase the behavior or decrease the behavior. You increase the behavior by adding something that will increase it. For example, money is a generalized universal reinforcer for human beings. Enough money and people will do anything. That's proven everywhere. So it doesn't matter what it is. People will kill people for that. People will take their clothes off for that. People will rob banks. So enough. It's just where is it? Same thing with you working at a job. You're going to work in the United States, of course. Getting paid however much. But if you get paid $500 an hour, you're going to do that job better than you're going to do a job for $5 an hour. So that's called adding to increase your frequency. So they want you to show up every day at work, pay you $500 an hour to go to work. You're going to show up. It's going to increase your frequency to go to work. Now however, we want to take something away to increase the frequency of you doing something. And now that, of course, is speeding. That's one of the big things. And here's where here's where people get this confused with positive, what we call positive punishment, but it's not, because you're getting a speeding ticket takes away your money to increase the frequency that you will drive the speed limit. Okay. Now a lot of people want to say, well, that's positive punishment. No, no, because it's trying to increase the frequency of driving the speed limit. You have to look at the goal. Is your goal to increase or is your goal to decrease? Now, it is, of course, trying to decrease you speeding, but speeding is a nebulous thing. But let's say the speed limit where you might be at is 45 miles an hour inside of city limits. So the goal is 45 miles an hour. That's a specific calculable goal. Speeding could be anything above that. So that's a little bit nebulous and vague. So we want concrete things when we're working with behaviors, especially when we're working with dogs or cats or dolphins or falcons, you name it. You got to be specific. You got to be goal oriented. You got to know what you're trying to get to, or you'll never get there. You cannot be vague. So animals are a lot more concrete, logical, and expecting consistency, which humans are not. Humans are liars, they're inconsistent, and they try to play games with each other because we're verbal. And animals are not verbal. That's another whole nother video I want to do about that, where people just make errors. I don't care what language they speak, they make errors. All right, so anyway, so looking at operant conditioning, which works and has been tested, and Skinner was a genius, regardless of his debates with Chomsky, because Chomsky did not explain. He just, tried to prove that behaviorism was wrong for how we learn languages, although it is partly how we learn languages, and it does work for us learning a second language. Part of it. It doesn't explain everything, but Chomsky did not present a countering argument of how we do learn. He just said, well, that's not how we learn. Okay, that's wonderful. But that does not dismiss what Skinner did. Skinner is a genius in what he gave to everybody in the world with his revelations. So anyway, operant conditioning. You're either going to increase the behavior or you're trying to decrease the behavior. You're either going to add something to increase the behavior, or you're going to take away something to increase the behavior. So that's it. You're either adding something to increase, adding something to decrease, taking away something to increase, or taking away something to decrease. Like, that is as clear as it's going to get, and that's going to save you 2 semesters of trying to figure out what they mean with the different things that we can go into. Avoidance, adversive. All of these things are used in dog training, a complete package. You want to hit a goal. And the guys at the top end of the sports are using them all. It doesn't matter about the ideological idiots who are postmodernists and I want it to be this way, I want it to be that way, and it's bad if it's not this way. No, the number one thing you're trying to do is for dog training is the welfare of the dog. If you can do something that will save that dog from getting run over in the street or getting shot by some moron who says, well, that dog looked like a deer to me, or a rabbit or whatever, then that's what counts. It doesn't count about your feel good about yourself, projecting your ideology onto other people and trying to control them. All right, so yeah, unfortunately, we got to get philosophical, political statements now involved into dog training, which didn't used to be there. All right, so anyway, Christophe Clugston coming to you from Southeast Asia, clarifying operant conditioning, the true, real science behind what is possible and how your dog actually learns, okay, through associations, by the way, which we can get into respondent conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, which is huge, and it's used in dog training all the time. All right, anyway, so I'll talk to you again later, and see ya. Okay, share this, by the way, share this, like it, and pass it around. If I can try to turn this thing off, it's difficult on here.